In each case, a man approached from behind, goon and nut on their body without physical contact, and fled.
Bro, that's absolutely crazy. Bro, you must be sick in the head, bro. That's the absolute worst. The gooners who got caught.
The live Gooner incident. On October 19th, 2020, Jeffrey Toobin, a 60-year-old legal analyst and longtime staff writer for The New Yorker, logged into a Zoom meeting from his home, believing he was participating in a routine internal discussion. The call included colleagues from the magazine and members of a radio program, and it was meant to simulate an election night scenario. Toobin assumed his camera and microphone were off. While the meeting continued for others, Toobin remained on screen. Unaware that his video feed was still active, he engaged in gooning, believing he was no longer visible.
Oh my god, this is absolutely crazy. Wow. In front of everyone, your colleagues from work. That's why I hate being on Zoom, man. 2020 was crazy. At least when you want to goon on live, man, you gotta make sure that your camera and your audio is off, because you're gonna be exposed.
Several participants noticed what was happening in real time. Shocked attendees immediately exited the call. Within hours, the incident was reported internally. Toobin was suspended from The New Yorker pending investigation and placed on leave from CNN, where he frequently appeared as a legal commentator. Days later, he publicly acknowledged the incident, stating it was an embarrassing mistake caused by a misunderstanding of the Zoom interface. In November 2020, The New Yorker terminated his employment after 27 years. CNN later allowed him to return briefly before cutting ties permanently. What had been assumed to be a moment of private downtime during a virtual meeting became a career-ending event. The unlocked door in.
Bro, you know you're a down bad gooner when gooning actually fucks up with your career. Because like, how can you want to goon when you're having a meeting, bro? That's crazy. At least you could have waited for the meeting to be over, then get to your private gooning session.
On March 14th, 2019, Daniel Mercer, a 19-year-old college student, was alone in his bedroom in a suburban home in Ohio. His parents were downstairs watching television, and the house was quiet. Daniel believed he had privacy.
Like, bro, being alone in your bedroom and you got nothing to do and while scrolling on your phone, that's where like the gooning sensations actually get.
His door was closed but unlocked, a habit formed from years of shared family space where knocking was assumed rather than enforced. Late in the evening, while he was busy gooning in his bed, his mother walked in on him to collect laundry. Assuming he was studying or asleep, she opened the door without knocking. The encounter lasted only seconds. Daniel froze. His mother immediately looked away and stepped back into the hallway, closing the door behind her without saying a word. In the hours afterward,
oh my god, that is so embarrassing, bro. At least when you're in your house and you want to have a gooning session, you gotta go ahead and make sure that the door is locked.
Daniel remained in his room, overwhelmed by shame and panic. He did not leave to eat or speak. His mother avoided the hallway outside his room for the rest of the night. In the days that followed, neither acknowledged the incident. According to later accounts shared anonymously by the boy in an online forum, the incident permanently altered the emotional dynamic in the household. He described intense embarrassment, anxiety, and avoidance that lasted for years, despite no further mention of the event by either party. The Toronto.
Yeah, hats off to him, because this can be a traumatizing experience. It can actually get you ahead to the point where you're like, maybe I should end my life. Hats off to him, he didn't actually end himself. I cannot imagine my mom coming into my room and catching me gooning, bro. That's crazy.
Serial gooner attacker. On multiple mornings throughout 2017, a series of women in downtown Toronto reported a disturbing pattern to police. The incidents occurred in busy public areas, near transit stations, sidewalks, and commercial buildings, often during rush hour. In each case, a man approached from behind, goon and nut on their body without physical contact, and fled.
Bro, that's absolutely crazy. Bro, you must be sick in the head, bro. That's the absolute worst. Can somebody think that it's actually cool to get behind a woman goon and not on their body without them realizing and then running away?
Fled the scene before victims could react. After several reports were filed, Toronto police began reviewing surveillance footage and witness description. The suspect was identified as 20-year-old Indian man living in the city. Police alleged that he deliberately targeted strangers in public spaces, choosing crowded environments where he could disappear quickly. Later that year, the man was arrested and charged with multiple counts of sexual assault. Investigators stated that the acts were intentional and non-consensual, and that the absence of physical touching did not lessen the severity of the crime. During court proceedings, prosecutors emphasized the psychological harm inflicted on victims and the repeated nature of the behavior. He was ultimately convicted and sentenced under Canadian criminal law. The birthday incident.
How many years they give him? This guy should get like 30 years in prison. You would have done that to my sister or to any of my female relatives, man. I would have found you and I would have knocked the shit out of you, because you cannot be doing that.
On May 3rd, 2022, a 26-year-old man named Anurak P. was alone in his bedroom at his family's apartment in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Yo, bro, I think we should have a discussion about this. I think gooning has to have like an age limit, bro. You cannot be 26 and still gooning, bro.
It was his birthday. Believing he had privacy for the afternoon, Anorak closed his door but did not lock it. Wearing headphones, he was unaware
This is the second incident of somebody actually not locking their door while going into a gooning session.
of activity outside his room. As the afternoon passed, Anorak remained absorbed in his behavior, looking for the right video to goon to on the hub. Unknown to him, his parents, relatives, and
Yeah, this must be an addiction for sure, because like, why would you scroll for hours looking for the perfect video?
several close friends had gathered in the living room to prepare a surprise celebration. A cake had been lit with candles. Someone began recording on a phone. At approximately 6:40 p.m., the group moved down the hallway toward his room. Without knocking, his aunt opened the door. The group immediately began singing Happy Birthday in unison. The singing continued for several seconds before anyone registered what they were seeing. Anorak froze in place. The room fell into confusion as some family members turned away, while others stood silently.
Bro, imagine we have kids coming into your room to surprise you, and like we have these little kids watching you goon. That must be devastating. I can get it if it's one of your parents, but a whole gang of relatives, man, that must be traumatized.
His mother quickly closed the door and told everyone to return to the living room. The recording ended abruptly and the celebration was canceled. That evening, Anorak did not leave his room. The following morning, Anorak was found deceased in his bedroom. Emergency services were contacted, but he was pronounced dead at the scene.
That's what I was saying, bro. That's why I said heads off to the first guy. When shit like this happens, people kill themselves. I repeat to this
Death
guy,
was
man.
ruled a suicide. No note was released publicly. The vacuum incident. On August 16, 2016, a 67-year-old man was alone in his apartment in the United States. He had been gooning for several hours using a household vacuum.
Bro, several hours? And you're using a vacuum cleaner. Oh my god, you must be down bad. At this stage, bro has used every appliance in his house to goon with. What's wrong with you? Plus, you're 67 years old.
Vacuum cleaner in a way he believed was safe. As he continued, the suction from the vacuum became stronger than he expected. His dick got stuck in the vacuum and swelling quickly developed, making it impossible to pull free. Pain escalated as circulation was blocked. He panicked, but embarrassment delayed his decision to call for help, leaving him trapped in the grip of his gooning. By the time he contacted emergency services, the swelling had become severe. By the time he arrived at the hospital, the trapped tissue showed signs of necrosis, meaning it could not recover even if circulation was restored. Doctors determined that attempting to save the affected groin tissue would place the patient at risk of life-threatening infection and sepsis. At that stage, his dick has to be cut off. The man was sedated and he survived. In his statement to clinicians,
Bro, I don't understand why this guy didn't actually turn off the vacuum cleaner.
he acknowledged that he had been gooning and had not understood how dangerous household suction devices could be. The case was recorded anonymously in medical literature as a preventable accident, the Enumclaw incident. On July 2, 2005, a 45-year-old Boeing engineer named Kenneth Pinion took his own gooning to another level. He visited a rural farm in Enumclaw, Washington, specifically to engage in sexual activity with a stallion. He was accompanied by a friend.
What even are these people, bro? What are they even drinking or smoking? To a point where you actually have a thought in your head and you actually say yes to that thought. We're going to have a gooning experiment with a stallion, bro. What the
James Michael Tate, who was recording the encounter
Yeah, this guy looks like a serial gooner.
on a digital camera. As the evening
Imagine taking a video of your friend having sex with a stallion, bro. What's crazy? Both of you are actually mentally unstable.
progressed, Pinion engaged in a sexual act with a horse that resulted in him suffering a perforated colon. A perforated colon is a hole or tear in the large intestine wall, a life-threatening medical emergency where stool leaks into the abdomen, causing severe infection and potentially fatal sepsis. Pinion did not
How did he actually get a hole in his colon? Was it from the humping or some infection from the stallion?
initially realize the life-threatening nature of his injury. He and Tate spent some time watching the footage they had recorded before Pinion's condition rapidly deteriorated. At approximately 9:30 p.m., after Pinion began to experience extreme pain and went into shock, his companions drove him to the Enumclaw Community Memorial Hospital. They dropped him off at the emergency room entrance and fled the scene. Hospital staff attempted to resuscitate Pinion, but he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The following morning, an autopsy confirmed that Pinion had died from acute peritonitis caused by the internal rupture. The driveway gooner incident. On May 14, 2025, an 18-year-old high school student shared a harrowing account on Reddit regarding a catastrophic failure of Bluetooth proximity settings. Late in the evening, while in the privacy of his bedroom with his door locked and noise-canceling earbuds firmly in place, he began
At least this guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to secure his surroundings so that he actually has a nice gooning session. But at least this is what you should do. Lock your door, your headphones in, lay your shit, and then just have your gooning session.
watching explicit adult content on his smartphone. Unbeknownst to him, his father had recently parked the family's SUV in the driveway directly beneath his bedroom window, leaving the electronics in accessory mode. As the teenager adjusted his phone's volume to the maximum setting, the device's auto-connect feature bypassed his earbuds and paired with the vehicle's high-fidelity sound system. The graphic audio
Bro, that must be embarrassing. Like, imagine watching your adult films on your phone and you got your wireless headphones on and you're watching it, and suddenly the audio goes away. You try to increase it and there's nothing. But the moment you increase it, downstairs people are hearing like that sound is coming from the car. I think he might have put his dad in trouble.
From the video did not play in his ears, but instead blasted at full volume through the car's speakers. At that exact moment, his older sister was sitting in the driver's seat, having just entered the vehicle to run a late-night errand. Startled by the sudden eruption of explicit audio, she initially believed the car's infotainment system had been hacked or a prank was being played. The teenager, realizing his earbuds were silent despite the volume bar being full, looked out his window to see his sister staring at the dashboard in horror before frantically turning off the ignition. The incident resulted in an immediate and deeply uncomfortable family confrontation. The opportunist Gooner.
At least you didn't get caught. People might just assume it was you, but at least they don't have enough evidence to prove like who was actually playing the audio. At least from that situation, you can actually get to live with yourself and maybe be careful next time. This is not as embarrassing as the previous one though.
On August 15th, 2023, San Diego police officer Anthony Hare arrested a woman on a bench warrant and began a standard transport to the Las Colinas Women's Detention Facility. During the drive, body camera footage captured a sexually suggestive conversation of the woman telling Hare she's down to fuck right now. As they approached the facility at approximately 1:33 a.m., Hare diverted his patrol cruiser onto a dark residential side street, turned off his headlights, and deactivated his body-worn camera. Unbeknownst to him at the time, entering the rear passenger compartment to be with the detainee would trigger the vehicle's automatic safety locks. Hare inadvertently locked himself inside the caged rear cabin with the woman, becoming trapped for over an hour. Panic-stricken and unable to open the doors from the inside, he was eventually forced to call a fellow officer for assistance, initially claiming he was checking the woman's pulse during a medical emergency. A supervisor arrived at 2:40 a.m. to extricate a visibly embarrassed Hare from the vehicle. Investigators found that Hare had falsely notified dispatch of his arrival at the detention center and discovered traces of semen on his duty belt. Hare resigned on September 14th.
I get it because like I'm not advocating for, but I get it why you did it because we never know how good looking the woman was and how bad his situation was. Maybe he wasn't actually getting, and he decided like, yo, I might get a chance to actually get something tonight. Let me go to the back scene and let me, clap that thing. And for a police officer to do this, man, that's absolutely crazy. And they're supposed to be protecting you, not having sex with you.
2023, just one day before a scheduled interview with Internal Affairs. By July 2024, his peace officer certification was officially revoked by the California Peace Officer Standards Accountability Board. The incorrigible Gooner.
Your license should be revoked, man. You cannot be a protector. You cannot be protecting citizens. When you get tempted, you fall at the slightest temptation.
In 2006, Dennis James Davidson, a then 29-year-old man, began a series of public gooning that eventually led to his branding as an incorrigible masturbator by the Oregon court system. His first recorded incident occurred.
What's with these gooning public sessions, bro? What the fuck is going on with these people? How can you actually feel comfortable going in public and actually gooning? Bro, that's crazy.
Living with his grandmother. A neighbor witnessed him standing on another neighbor's porch, gooning. When confronted by the witness, Davidson thrust his hips toward her and shouted, "You want some of this?" before police arrived and found items in his backpack, including lubricant and a note expressing a frustrating crush on the woman whose porch he had occupied. Just weeks later, Davidson was caught gooning again on an elementary school playground in full.
Bro, gooning in front of an elementary school, that's crazy. Man, the world has gone so bad, man. To have people actually going to a kid's school and actually gooning in a park.
Full view of 3 children and several school staff members, resulting in his first significant prison term. Upon his release in 2008, he was arrested.
Why would you even release this guy? At this point, he's a serial gooner, Like, I think law enforcement should introduce a law similar to what they did for serial killers, for serial gooners.
Arrested again within 4 months for gooning in a strip mall parking lot in front of 3 women and a toddler. This pattern reached a peak in 2011 when, only 4 days after being released from prison for his previous crimes, he was spotted behind a tree at a...
Again, he was taken to jail and released again. And when he's released 4 days later, he's actually got back to his serial
Salem
gooning.
Park gooning while watching a family on a picnic. Due to his extensive history...
Bro, your brain must be fried, bro, to actually watch a family having a picnic and gooning to them eating or having fun. For your brain to actually find that arousing is crazy.
Of recidivism, a lower court initially sentenced him to life in prison under Oregon's true life sentencing laws for repeat sex offenders.
Life in prison is what this guy should get. But either way, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe.